On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt will interview Pete Fletzer, who authored Who Owns the Myth, Star Wars Fandom, and the Soul of the Saga. Stay tuned to hear Pete's motivations behind the book and his experiences as a lifelong Star Wars fan, who also got to contribute to the franchise in his own ways. Of course, still on the show with Question of the Week responses and the latest round of top high Star Wars fan artist features. Punch it, Chewie. Hey now, everybody, welcome back to the Star Wars Time Show, and we are live this week, and we got a special guest. It's a two-for type of week. I am joined by Pete Fletzer. Let me give you guys a little bio on Pete, just in case you haven't been checking him out on the SSW network over on the YouTubes. So, Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, but you created the Echo Base website way back in the 90s, correct?
Yeah, not the Echo Base that exists today. That's a whole different group of guys, but I created one of the very first Star Wars websites back in the 90s. Yes, sir.
Back when the internet became commercial. He's written for official Star Wars publications, including Star Wars Insider, which we just learned is shutting down in 2026. Yeah. He's attended official premieres for the prequels, hanging out with celebrities, Christian Slater. You never know who this man has ran into. And currently, Pete is not only writing books, but he hosts the Around the Galaxy podcast over on the SSW network of channels. So the reason Pete is joining us today on the Star Wars Time Show is Pete just released a fantastic book for Star Wars fans of any age. Well, maybe 10, 12 plus. But it released yesterday on the 11th, so it's out now. You can get it both on Kindle and through Pete's website, whoownsthemyth.com. That is the title of the book, Who Owns the Myth, Star Wars Fandom, and the Soul of the Saga, written by this gentleman joining me right now. So that's why Pete's on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about his fandom, what got him into writing, what kind of spurred the idea of writing this book, and then just kind of discussing the book itself and hopefully convincing some of you to give it a read. Because if Matt can read it, you all can read it. Because you all know, like our fans know over here, Pete, I refer to reading as words and shit. It has never been my favorite way to consume Star Wars content or content in general. I kind of like the moving images better, but I'm back on the horse. I've been reading again. I explained to Pete, was reading Asimov's Foundation and had the opportunity to check out his book, and it was a fantastic little tangent to get away from Isaac's world for a bit. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So, hey, welcome, Pete. Sorry, I know I've been talking a lot here, but welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Good to have you here. Like we were talking beforehand, I have seen some of your clips from the SSW network. In particular, when you challenge one of the bigger trolls out there in the Star Wars fandom, I always appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody's enjoying it. But hey, thanks for having me. It's funny you say that you're not a big. It's actually a kind of a running joke on our live show on Thursday nights that me and my co-host Nick, we don't really read the books and we barely touch the comic books. So I totally feel you. And it's not that I don't like them. It's not that I don't want to check them out. It's just that I got to draw the line somewhere. I've been starting to listen to some more books, but that's only because it's easier. I don't have to like sit in one place. I can go and do something while I'm reading. And it's actually why I'm working on an audio version of this book, which, by the way, you've been a podcaster for a long time, so have I. It is not easy to create your own audiobook. I've been trying to do it, man. And it's not as easy as you might think. So
do you find yourself like trying to like inflect too much or add too much inflection to your voice so you don't sound all monotone?
Yeah, what I've decided to do, I'd like at first, because if you listen to like most audiobooks, they're very, very deliberate and every single letter will be pronounced. And like, I just don't do that. So I've decided, you know what, screw it. I'm a podcaster. So you're going to get the podcast version. And that might mean skipping some words or embellishing some words, but But it's going to be the same message, the same book. So, but yeah, my hope is that I'll have that out after the first of the year if I can
Awesome.
get through it. Yeah.
I actually have never listened to an audiobook in my life yet. So,
Really?
but it does sound like an easier, more efficient way to consume while you're doing other hobbies. So, might have to give it a try. All right. Real quick before we get into discussing Pete, his Star Wars fandom, and of course, who owns the myth. A shameless plug for the Star Wars Time Show. Last week, sadly, Pete, you can probably relate to this, but my co-host and I, Nick, we sat down on Monday to do our pre-recorded show, which we instant premiere on Wednesday, same time as we're doing this. And at the end of the hour and a half long recording session, I looked down and realized my mic was on mute the whole time. So we had to fully scrap our Visions Volume 3 ranking episode. So that one never saw the light of day. So on the screen right now, I'm just sharing our rankings from our aborted episode last week for the fans to check out real quick. You in the Visions, Pete? Do you like those projects?
I love them. I'm not really an anime fan, which is why I'm so surprised that I actually really, really like them. And so it's funny, I was just peeking over here to see where you guys put them. Black was actually my favorite, and it was the most freaky, most out there version of the of Visions. Yeah, I love what I've seen with Visions. I actually, I also kind of like the what was it, Tales of stories too, because it fits my attention span. It's, little 15, 20-minute stories. And on top of that, it allows them to kind of either go outside the lines or shine a light on different parts of the galaxy. And so to me, I think it's a lot of fun. Again, I'm not an anime guy, so I don't know the studios. I've heard of some of them, but I don't know, what I'm getting. But I've liked what I've seen.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this season. I had Black at 3, the Duel at 1, the Bird of Paradise at 2. So I had Black up there as well.
The Duel is really good. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's good stuff coming out there. The Black is something is like, maybe in my college days, I'd like to do some things and watch that and see where my brain takes me. So
exactly,
that one was pretty far out. All right, like I said, just a shameless plug for my tech fail last week. So now, let's get to know Pete a little bit because as Pete describes in his book, he's been a fan for over 50 years, and he's worked officially with Star Wars publications like Insider. He's got to do some really cool stuff as a content creator, and of course, he's a part of the best tribe, the original trilogy tribe, the tribe I claim, as Pete mentions in his book. We have kind of tribalized the Star Wars fandom, so at least you and I are in the good one, the right one.
Yes. So, yeah.
All right, Pete, let's get to know you a little bit before we start talking about Who Owns the Myth, which again is available now on Kindle and whoownsthemyth.com.
And hard copy on Amazon.com too.
Oh, so okay, excellent.
Yeah, the hard copy hit yesterday as well. Yep.
Very cool. And again, just a tease, I really enjoyed the book, but I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So,
awesome.
Pete, I usually kind of have these icebreaker questions anytime I bring a guest on the show. I already know about your fandom and kind of what started it, so I'm going to go ahead and just skip to a few of the other questions. The one thing, I kind of picked up in your book, especially when you're talking about your younger years, playing with the figures and the big dirt hill and all that. Do you still actively collect anything Star Wars? I mean, do you collect figures, memorabilia, props?
Yeah, so as you can see behind me, I'm really big into the helmets.
Okay.
Most of the Black Series helmets, and you can also see I'm really into the Legos. So that's kind of been my thing. It's funny, I started doing Lego again when my son was born. It was like a great excuse to play with them and to like do it with him. He doesn't care. He doesn't get it, but I still do. I have, more shelves outside the studio here full of Lego, and just because I find it's like, now I understand why people might have used to do like ships in a bottle or something. It's just like, it's a little bit of concentration, but it's kind of brainless, and I get something at the end. So I love doing the Lego. And I've always, one of the things about Star Wars, and again, back to that sort of original trilogy, one of the things I always wanted my entire life was the Stormtrooper helmet right there. Like that was the thing. Always dreamed of getting a Stormtrooper helmet. I still like kid myself and say one day I'll do the 501st stuff. I'm never going to do that, honestly, but I'd love to. But I've always been excited by the helmets, and then somebody was on my show about a year ago, who made the realization, or made me realize, that Star Wars is full of silhouettes, and that's so you capture, you can just see just the solid black version of almost any helmet or any in most characters, and you know who they are. So,
Exactly.
so the helmets are kind of my thing. So every time Black Series comes out with something, I tend to get it. I have been avoiding a lot of the repaints, like the fives that just came out, I guess it was, from Clone Wars, and love Clone Wars, but I don't. Yeah, I've got a plain white one of the Ahsoka one too, so I think I'm good there. But I do love the helmets and the Lego. So
Excellent. Well, you're a smarter man than I, because I got into the Hot Toys, and at this point in time, I
oh
probably could have
man,
paid for the first year of my daughter's college when she's ready. When I look at my shelves, so,
yeah. Yeah,
uh,
I've gotten I don't know, is it Hot Toys or one of the, I can't, what's the other one? There's Hot Toys, and then there's
Sideshow.
Sideshow. I think that's the Sideshow Ahsoka, and I have a Sideshow Rex somewhere. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they are
And
beautiful little dolls, but man, are they
somehow I
expensive.
stopped. But yeah, oh man, the Sideshow stuff is insane. It
Yeah.
looks so cool though. Yeah.
Yep, totally. Well, one day, if you ever open a museum, I'll contribute some of my dolls to it. All right, Pete. One thing I didn't really pick up on the book, at least from your early fandom, is what is your favorite film? I'm guessing it's going to be from the OT, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Which one is it? The Empire? Is it different than
So
most?
yeah, so it's funny. My favorite all-time movie period is Empire Strikes Back,
Okay.
and I feel like that's such a generic, but there's a reason for that, right? They say, like when people say the same answer over and over, there's probably a reason for it. And Empire is just great, and not too long ago, I was flipping through the channels, between on commercials between. Innings somewhere, and Empire was on, just in the Carbonite scene, and I literally just watched through to the
Yeah.
end, even though I have it on Disney Plus, I have it on DVD, I have it on VHS, but I ended up watching it. But it's funny, when I think about a movie to just throw in, it's really strange, but it's The Phantom Menace. Like, if I'm just gonna
Okay.
watch a Star Wars movie, and I did not love The Phantom Menace. When I walked out of the theater at the premiere in New York, I was like, what did I just see? And for some reason, that movie has just become sort of a fun movie to have on. So that's probably my favorite, just sort of watch it. My favorite overall movie is Empire. And I think my favorite Star Wars story in a movie is The Last Jedi. And I know that's probably controversial
Watch
for some
out for the
folks.
tomatoes.
Yes, people are literally hitting their screen right now as they watch.
Cancel.
But I just think it's a really interesting story. And again, you can talk. There's 100 things that people have valid points on, and not so valid points on, but it's worth a conversation. And it's just a really interesting story. Ryan Johnson's just brilliant, I think.
Yeah,
so.
he's pretty smart. I mean, he's done okay for himself after the TLJ
Yeah.
with his Knives Out franchise. I think
He
he's
survived it,
just
yeah.
fine. I don't think he needs the Star Wars trilogy. They just never going to make at this point in time. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Hey, excellent. Yeah, I remember the TPM anecdote from Who Owns the Myth. This is the book that Pete has just put out, and that was a fun one, because I remember that time, and I guess I'll talk more about this when we talk about your book. But I think one of my favorite parts of reading the book was the nostalgia it kind of digs up for us older fans that have kind of, you lucked out. I mean, you got to see all the movies, the originals, that is, in theater as they released.
Yeah.
I only got to see ROTJ, and I was still 3, maybe 4 years old, but I still consider myself part of the old guard. But
Sure. Yeah.
now the TPM stuff was great. I'll touch more on that when we talk about the book. But I'm with you. I would rank that one the best prequel overall.
Yeah.
I think it for what the movie was meant to do, and the kid cast, it actually has the least amount of questionable material in there.
Yeah.
I honestly, and people hate me for this, I've got a lot of flack, probably death threats and whatnot, but I think Revenge of the Sith is probably the most problematic movie of that trilogy, because of the way they handle Anakin's downfall. I just think it's not earned. It's a little quick, a little cheap.
Right.
But
I can see
thankfully,
that.
we got the Clone Wars that helped kind of fill in all those gaps, and now I'm okay with it. So
Right. Honestly, the Clone Wars changed my feeling
Sure.
on all the prequels. But but the problem with that, and I'm with you on from that regard. From a pure movie standpoint, it just happens so fast and it just is extreme. But and I really, one of the things I say on our show all the time is I hate to have to do homework to be able to enjoy a movie. So like that's one of the problems I had with The Rise of Skywalker, right? Apparently there's a whole book by Adam Christopher, which, as we already discussed, we don't read the books. So
well, you had to play Fortnite too to realize somehow Palpatine returned, man.
Exactly.
I mean,
yeah, for sure. Yep.
All right. So, favorite trilogy then? We sticking with the OGs? Or
Yeah, the OT is certainly my favorite trilogy. Yeah, for sure.
So, what would you say to you, Pete, is just one standout moment from the entire franchise? It could be films, TV. We don't read books, but in case you heard a story from someone, what's something that anytime you think about it, just reminds you, like, damn, this is why I'm such a hardcore fanboy of Star Wars.
Yeah, I think so much has happened since the Disney acquisition. So there's now so much more Star Wars to choose from. And I think the moment actually happened 6 years ago today, was the end of the first episode of The Mandalorian. And nobody expected that, but everybody who watched it, to a person, was blown away by the reveal of Baby Yoda. And I remember my whole time watching it, I'm like, 50 years old, okay, they're probably going to find Boba Fett. That's what they're after. He's looking for Boba Fett. That was in my head. I was certain. And then when he pulls back that little blanket and it's Grogu, Baby Yoda,
wild.
It changed everything. And honestly, Baby Yoda is, I still call him Baby Yoda, is still, he's the best thing that happened to marketing for Star Wars since probably the original trilogy, because he's everywhere. People who don't even know, have never watched the show, have Grogu t-shirts, and you can buy Grogu pillows, and you don't, like, my wife knows who he is, but she's never watched an episode. So but from a go-to moment, I think that would be it, because I was 10 when the I Am Your Father thing happened, so I was shocked, but I was 10. But that was like literally like a stand up. It was like 5 a.m. or whatever when I got up to watch it, because it dropped overnight, and stand up and point and be like vocally like responding to a show. Like most trailer reactions, I think, are 98% just like people like, right. But like literally, if I was recording myself, you would have gotten one of those, oh my God, sort of situations. So yeah, that would be my go-to moment, I think. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, Grogu he has transcended just Star Wars fans, and it's become kind of a global icon. And hopefully, he and his buddy have a great movie coming out in May. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be fun.
It's been a while since we've been able to go back to theaters, and when you look back at Disney's initial roadmap, and we were supposed to be getting Star Wars stories and trilogies every other year through the 2020s, but hey, things happened. The world got turned upside down, and here we are. All right, I think you'll understand this question. If not, I'll explain it. But do you prefer Yub Nub or Victory Celebration?
I'm a original version of the song guy.
It's the right answer, by the way.
Okay, I thought that was the right answer, and I knew I was going to get it. Yeah, I mean, Yub Nub is fine. It's better than Jedi Rocks, honestly, in my opinion. But I just like it's just the even the goofiness of Celebrate the Love, like being sung by a choir at the end. It's just kind of like, all right, that's cool. That's my. Yeah,
I get a lot of pushback on that opinion. The younger fans tell me Yub Nub is stupid. It only shows the celebration on Endor, where Victory is. It's like whatever. None of it existed when it first came out, and that's how it should have stayed. Thank you.
That's all we knew.
Yeah. That's why I mean. That's my favorite part of your book, was just reading and just kind of transplanting myself back to those times and reliving the experience through your words. And it was awesome. So much fun, because I'm with you. I mean, the special editions it was kind of neat to go back to a theater, but once you looked and saw what he did, it was like, did we really need all this stuff? And
it was like the first time there was a rift in the fandom, right? Like I kind of
great point
to in the book is
totally.
Like, Star Wars was great. Even if you didn't like the Ewoks, you were like, cool, it's still Star Wars. But it was the first time fans were divided, and that was a really interesting time.
Well, we just need to take away social media and go back to where not everyone
Yeah.
had a platform to just
Right.
scream into
And-
the void.
Exactly. And if you have an argument, you have to like sit in front of somebody and say, I dislike this, and then
Yeah.
not call them woke for liking it or whatever you
Yeah,
might
yeah,
be doing.
that's
So,
exactly right. No, I mean, like you, we are also woke Disney shills. So
yeah.
that we're a similar type of channel. Although sometimes we use explicit language a little
Oh, yeah.
excessively over here. So
Yeah,
all
so
right.
do we. So you're good. We're like sister channels here.
That's
it sounds
right.
Like. This is great.
That's right. Yeah. I've been called the old man that yells at clouds. So you never know what you're gonna get when you have positive opinions about Star Wars these days.
God forbid you like something.
All right. So Pete, again, you've been kind of in this for a long time as a fan,
Yeah.
doing some official coverage for Lucasfilm Arms and whatnot. What would you say up until now is the coolest moment you've experienced as a Star Wars content creator?
Oh, wow. I think probably the coolest thing was going to the Phantom Menace premiere in New York City. Although no, I'm gonna say that my visit to Skywalker Ranch was probably
Okay.
the coolest thing. And even though I don't go into it very deeply in the book, it was such an amazing experience. I became very friendly with Steve Sansweet, and for my day job at the time, I was out in San Francisco for a meeting. And I just contacted Steve. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in San Francisco. Are you going to be around? He's like, yeah, come on up. And so the funniest part of the story to me is that I rented a car, and I expect to get like a little tiny sneaker-sized car and just drive up. And they're like, sorry, sir, your car is unavailable. And I was like, oh, shit, I got to get up to San Rafael. What am I going to do? And they're like, we do have a Mustang convertible, if you don't mind, for the same price. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll take that. Driving over the Golden Gate Bridge and it.
Yeah.
But walking around in the one of my favorite parts in the book, I do mention that I didn't get to go to Skywalker Sound because James Cameron was actually finishing Titanic at that moment.
Why?
But the thing that I don't mention in the book, because it would have been too long to put in there, was, and I'll give you the short version here. Steve was walking me around Skywalker. It was the older version of Skywalker Ranch. So, like, it didn't have the Yoda fountain and all that stuff. And in fact, there was just one little hallway that had a handful of props. Like, they had the idol from Raiders. They had like a snow speeder and a lightsaber. And so that was really cool. And suddenly from upstairs, there's a call to Steve, and he's like, hey, I need Steve for a minute. So he goes over and he's talking to, why can't I think of his name? The guy who produced the prequels. Why can't I think of his name?
Rick
McCullum, right. It was Rick McCullum, and it was full on Rick McCullum. It was F-bombs. It was this and that. He's talking to Steve. You got to stop this guy from doing that. We can't let him do this. And then Rick McCullum, the highlight to me was Rick McCullum then turns to me and he's like, really sorry. Didn't mean to take him away from you, but have a good day. And I was like, he's apologizing to me for interrupting my little tour of Skywalker Ranch. So that was like one of those things that'll, that's something you can't repeat ever. So it was just really cool to be there. And then we had lunch with Don Bees. He's like, do you know who Don is? I'm like, the guy who runs R2? Yeah, I know who Don Bees is. And we sat with him at lunch in the Skywalker or the Lucasfilm cafeteria. It was kind of cool. So
see, people, it pays to hustle and get yourself out there. You never know what opportunities may come your way.
Oh, I was right time, right place, though, man, for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's why your book is so fun to read, because it does kind of set that stage and takes people back in time to when we didn't have the full-fledged internet. There was no social media. There were barely any websites covering this stuff. So you definitely were. You hit the right decade to kind of be growing up there.
Yeah.
All right. A few more just kind of chill questions here. What are we watching on TV these days? Any good shows that you're kind of locked into right now?
Well, I was very excited to hear that Alien Earth got a second season today.
Okay, so you enjoyed that? We actually covered that show because Star Wars has
pro or
nothing.
con? Because some people didn't like it, some people loved it.
Fully enjoyed it. I didn't appreciate the finale because we didn't know if we were getting a second season. So I was like, damn, they left a lot of stuff open. But now that it sounds like Noah has signed a deal, it seems like it's going to become a much bigger world. So I'm all for it.
I loved it. And the show I'm currently watching is Derry on Welcome to Derry.
Okay, I need to get moving on that one.
Yeah, it's funny because I was really big into Stephen King back in the 90s and early 2000s, and I loved it. And I remember watching the original version on television with Tim Reed and John Ritter, um, and I thought that was cool. But then I didn't watch the new movies, and then when I heard this was coming, I watched them, and I really enjoyed them. The first one is like 10 times better than the second one, but I really.
1000%.
Yeah, I really enjoyed them though. I thought they were really cool, and Skarsgård as Pennywise is phenomenal.
So if I haven't watched the two new movies in a while, am I good just tuning into the show, or should I brush up on one or the other to kind of get some?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're fine going into it. I think it's I'm glad that I watched them because it refreshed me because I hadn't read it or watched it since the 90s. But and I think what's interesting is as an adult now, or an older person, I appreciate some of the things happening underneath the story, like some of the more mystical things happening. It was a cool sort of horror story and movie, but then now watching it, and that's what the series is expanding. So yeah, I think you'll have no problem getting into it. So
all right, excellent. How about last movie you checked out? Did you go watch Badlands by chance?
No, it's on the schedule for this weekend. Now, my son and I were going to try to get there last weekend, but we weren't able to do it. But yeah, we're doing that one next. I think the last movie I saw in the theater was, I don't know. Gosh, I wonder if it might have been Borderlands.
Okay.
which was just dumb and fun. And I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, there's holes here and it doesn't match the video," but it was 90 minutes of dumb fun. So, I'm pretty sure I've seen something since then. I just can't think of it. One of the blockbusters, I'm sure.
I'm a junkie. We have an AMC next to us, so I'm in their A list, whatever. So I get 4 movies a week. So I try to go at least once a week. You will not be disappointed with Badlands. I usually do like a little movie review.
Yeah,
it's excellent. I've seen it twice already. It's only been out not even a week, so it is super fun, and hopefully it keeps going. Dan Trachtenberg definitely understands this franchise, and he's 3 for 3 at this point in time.
Yeah, Prey was amazing. Yeah. Was Killer of Killers was the other one. And
yep. Yeah.
So good. Yep. This guy gets it. Yep.
It's so cool, and having a Yautja as the protagonist it works. So that's all I'll say. Cool. No spoilers. It's well worth it.
All right. I'm going this weekend.
Do you do any gaming at all? You into video games?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been doing more board games lately with some friends that got me into it, which I had never really done too much. But video games, yeah. But you know what? I'm more into like the sports games. The last game that I really dug into was Skyrim, which tells you, how long it's really been that I've dropped in. I played, the 2 Jedi games. Those were really cool. But, and I'm starting, was it Out?
I was going to say, did you give Outlaws a try?
Yeah, I did, and I played about half of it, and then I just watched all the cutscenes online because it wasn't. I'm also not like I've tried to get into things like Assassin's Creed and that style game. I'm more of a like when I used to play, when I played Skyrim, I was not a magic user. I was just like a guy who went in with the sword and just cut everything through. I don't have the patience for that. So, but yeah, so I'm also playing. Was it Outer Worlds 2? Or no,
the new one. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to get on that one.
Yeah, just started that. That's fun. I like the first one.
The Ghost of Yote on PS5, the sequel to Tsushima. So that's
my son's playing that. He loves that. Those are great games. They're fun to watch. I like watching him play them. Those are that's a good sign of a good game, right? If I can just stand behind him and watch him play it, that's 100%, a good game.
100%. Beautiful looking game.
Yep.
All right. Last one here, just kind of, who is Pete? What are we listening to? Who dominates your playlist?
My playlist is usually like 90s and 80s metal.
Perfect.
I'm a
another correct answer.
Excellent. The last concert I saw was Metallica and Pantera in Philly. So that was great. I'm going to see Iron Maiden, Megadeth, and Anthrax next year. So I'm into that. But like, I love Tool. I love Ghost. I love anything with. It's funny. I was driving my daughter somewhere before I got on with you, and she put on her playlist. And I didn't want to sound like the annoying old guy, but it was just like all this horrible pop vibing stuff, which is cool, I guess, if you're into it. But, and again, I will never yuck somebody's yum, but I will not yum that stuff. I just can't do it. So yeah, give me hard guitars, give me, loud double bass drum, and I'm there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in terms of actual music creation, that ended in like 1999.
You
So
might be right. Yeah.
there's some good 2000 type of stuff, but it's all kind of just seems manufactured and produced at this point in time. That's
Yeah.
why my daughter's 9, and I have given her my CD wallets. Remember CD
Oh
wallets?
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
so
Yep.
she's going through all the grunge and alt rock, all that type of stuff from those eras. So all right,
That's
cool.
cool. Yeah.
Well, I guess I do have one more. You're out there in Jersey, so who we
Yeah.
following sports wise? Are you a New York sports fan, or do you keep it in the home state?
I am a very unique person in that I am a Phillies diehard. I'm a
Okay, I see the
Flyers
bell.
diehard.
Then that makes
Yep. I got
sense.
the Phillies hat. My favorite sport of all time is hockey. I've been a Flyers fan since I
Oh
was
no,
a
I'm from
tiny child.
Pittsburgh. You guys sent Ron Hextall to destroy the franchise.
Yeah. Yeah, but it hasn't helped us get any better. So,
No.
but in football, I'm a Giants fan, which is really funny. My
Okay.
son actually said to me once he plays football in a local club.
Dad,
He's
can
like,
I
"Why?"
switch fandoms?
Yeah, he's like, "Why aren't we Eagles fans? We love the Phillies and the Flyers." I'm like, "You can like the Eagles, but don't expect me to root for him." And so it's funny. He's a big, he's a Cooper DeJean guy. He's a linebacker, so he's
All
like
right.
into that.
Well,
So yeah, so I'm a Giants, Phillies, and Flyers. And so when my funny story on that is when the Eagles won the Super Bowl the first time, I had friends calling me. They're like, "Hey, your team did it." I was like, "The only
nope.
reason I'm happy is because they beat the Patriots. Other than that, no, thank you."
Yeah.
So
That's fun. How did you get split into that? Was your dad a fan of Philly sports then?
well, I became a Flyers fan when I was 5 years old because I was playing hockey, and my dad said, "You face off like Bobby Clark," and I said, "What team is he on?" He said, "The Flyers." I said, "Are they good?" He said, "They just won the cup." And when you're 5 years old, that's all you need.
That's amazing.
And then I moved into I was working for a company near Philly. I was always kind of like a Yankees follower, Yankees fan to a degree, but then I just got into honestly, I was kind of tired of the buying the World Series kind of thing, which is why I hate the Dodgers. But the Phillies are kind of trying to do it themselves too. But I just became. I mean, I just love the Philly vibe. Like either you love it or you don't, and I happen to like it. So
They're
although I don't like
hardcore.
the Eagles fans, so
They're hardcore. I mean, most of my mother's family is from Philly, so I'm well aware
okay,
of that
yeah,
scene and the
yeah,
type of fandom there. So
yeah,
I get
yeah.
it. All right, man. Cool. Let's go ahead and start talking about the book. Again, Pete's here, Pete Fletzer from the Around the Galaxy podcast. He just authored Who Owns the Myth? Star Wars Fandom and the Soul of the Saga. Out now on Kindle, traditional Amazon paperback, and whoownsthemyth.com. So I guess Pete, first and foremost, what motivated you to even sit down and write this thing? I mean, doing all the I'm assuming you have your own career, then you do all this Star Wars wrangling over on your network.
Yeah.
What kind of motivated you to do this and take up all that time it probably required?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be a writer, right? I've referenced Stephen King before. I tried to write fiction and it just was not any good. But I always kind of felt like I wanted to write. I mean, I've done the work for Star Wars Insider and Star Wars Galaxy. I've been in traditional communications for most of my day job career and marketing, that sort of thing. So I always felt like there was something, a book, and a couple different, friends of mine wrote a book uh, like Marshall Julius and a couple other people who I've become friends with. And I was like, I got a book in here somewhere. So I thought that I could do something from the podcast. And I thought, I've done so many years of podcasting, spoken to so many different people, different stories. And my initial plan was to write a book about people's Star Wars story. And I wrote a couple short chapters, and then I realized I was writing somebody else's story. And that was okay. It was interesting because I've read enough books of people's little clips and whatnot. But decided I didn't want to do that. And then what I kind of realized was that the other thing that's happened as a result, and you referenced it before, is I've gotten into some online skirmishes and spoken to people. And this, I wanted to have a conversation about that, but I also didn't want to I didn't want to. You'll notice I really don't take too much of a side. The only side that I definitely take is there's no room for hatred, bigotry, misogyny. If that's your Star Wars angle, then it's not Star Wars. You got other issues going on. But I wanted to understand, why do people get so passionate about Star Wars? Why are we doing this, right? Why do we have a podcast? Why do we wear Star Wars shirts everywhere? Why do we look for every opportunity to have that conversation? And then why is it that we don't always agree, and what leads to that, right? So So that was question number one. The second question I had was, well, what happens when the guy who created the story walks away and then comes back, which is really kind of what happened with the special editions and the prequels, because we had that big gap. And so in that big gap, people took real ownership of the story, and they read through all the EU books and the comic books, and, even just sort of writing in their own head, what is the Clone Wars and what happened here and there. And so, why did they care when George came back and wrote something different? And I think, so the concept of the book really came to, like, when something is so powerful, when a story is so effective, and becomes more than just a pop culture phenomenon, what is it about that pulls people in, and what keeps it going? And so I've always been a Joseph Campbell fan from the Hero with a Thousand Faces and that sort of thing. Big fan of his, and I knew so many people had talked about the myth of Star Wars and the way it fits all so I spend like a chapter and a half talking about that in the book. But I think what I came to from that was that, because it's a myth, because it follows that sort of all those tropes, it's speaking to something deeper inside us. And so we become owners of that because the story has spoken to, something that has spoken to humans for thousands of years. So, um, I was just inspired to, like, and I started writing the first chapter or two, and then I just kept rolling, and I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. And so kind of just went through it that way, and really had a lot of fun with it. I didn't want it. I knew immediately I didn't want it to be an academic book, because honestly, I'm not that guy. I'm not like,
No.
and if it, as you were alluding to before, if you read it, it's not written like, like a textbook. But it's written in sort of a conversational way, and almost like, almost written like a podcast script, because naturally that's the way I would have done it. And so, I ended up getting to something that I was really happy with, and so I just continued to pursue what would be involved in doing that.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I really enjoyed reading it. Found it easy to read. It almost has like a memoir type of feel to it. Recounting a lot of the stories, but then kind of bringing it back and still trying to make your point about myths and who technically owns them once the creator has kind of unleashed them to the world.
Right.
So kind of sticking on that, did you consider any other mythical tales to use as comparisons? Because you do a lot with the Arthur stuff and the Iliad and the Odyssey, which are, they're huge examples. Did you have any other you considered to kind of weave in there?
Yeah, I just, as a result of doing this, I discovered the Ravanyana, which is an old Indian myth, and that was very interesting. But I, again, because I was conscious of not wanting to create a textbook style, I just pulled on a couple times. I pulled on basically the same stories, just to be like, okay, if you're familiar with Greek mythology, which I think we all learned in like fourth grade and above, and all those things. And I just kind of tried to stick with some of the most common things. I mean, there were ideas that I had that I ended up kind of killing, because I didn't honestly, like, the closest I get is when I talk about how there have been, groups convene to determine which books of the scripture are canon, which got me pretty
right.
close to a little too close to, like, saying, hey, religion is myth too, because I didn't want to, that's a great way to get canceled immediately. But that point being, like, to answer your question, yeah, there's so many different great myths out there. And I mean, it was funny. My dad was one of my beta readers, and he just filled the margins with great questions. And one of the questions he asked is, why do you think Wizard of Oz worked too? And so, I don't really I don't think I even referenced Wizard of Oz in this book, but I mean, but that has gone away now, right? I mean, other than, you could say that Wicked has kind of brought it back, and it's kind of like the expanded universe of the Wizard of Oz. But I remember when I was a kid, right, in the 70s, that was the biggest thing, and it still survived, and it was still something we look forward to. My kids, they're 16 and 13, and I don't know if they've ever actually sat through the Wizard of Oz. So, but they both sat through Star Wars. They both, my son is a huge Clone Wars fan and that sort of thing. So, I'm really not answering your question directly, other than to say there were so many choices. I was more concerned about having to explain each choice that I would compare it to. So I
Makes
kind of
sense.
kept it simple. But I mean, you're 100% right. There's so many really interesting things out there from a myth perspective.
Yeah, your point on the religious stuff is an astute one.
Yeah.
We won't say it out loud, but let's just say I probably agree.
Yeah, that was one of those. Yeah, we'll just leave it there.
Yeah,
So we're safe.
leave
Yeah.
that alone. Hey, Michael Kramer in the chat, asking what is the Odyssey? Well, look up Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. Then
Yeah.
you'll find plenty of literature to read on that. They're probably free to read since they're so old. So check it out.
Yeah.
It's basically it's where a lot of modern storytelling came from.
Yeah.
A lot of tropes have been passed down throughout the centuries, and really that's what Pete is tackling in Who Owns the Myth, is kind of comparing Star Wars and the myth that Lucas first created, and now what it's turned into 50 years later with fan creations. You had the EU, now the Legends universe. So what who does technically own it? That's kind of the question at the heart of the book. Some other the things I want to ask you about. We were kind of talking about this a little bit, and the magnification of the fandom and whatnot, and you don't make that a main focus in the book, but you do bring it up. And I guess what I wanted to ask, was it hard not to just name the names that I know you were writing about and calling out the grifting community?
Well, so what's funny is there are 2 or 3 chapters, and this is the hardest. I think this was the most important lesson to learn as a first time complete book writer, is being in a situation where you have to be willing to let pieces of the story go, right? And just kind of. So I had an entire interlude about a situation that happened in the. When I first started podcasting, where I got head to head with somebody who's part of another group of geeky guys who like to game, and was we and him actually did an episode together where I tried to break down that wall and just try to understand it. And the backlash I got from the people who followed me and told me you can't platform people like that, and I was so new to the situation, right? I didn't know what to do, but it was hard not to name names. But one of the things that's interesting about Star Wars fandom, and Nick, my co-host, and I talk about it all the time, is trying to appeal to an audience that isn't in, the thick of it every single day. And so one of the things that I was keeping in mind is that people who might read this book might not know that there is even like online fandom battles, right? They may not know who.
Very true.
But I thought it was important to show that, the reason people kind of say, oh man, Star Wars fans argue all the time, is for different reasons. And some of them are just story related, and some are just because, I talk about the first time Finn appeared on screen, and the thing that I heard in the background as I was watching it. And it was, that to me was the first time I was like, oh wow, there's a perspective that I just don't understand or frankly, in any way condone, but it's out there. And so not naming names was difficult. Honestly, I've seen how some of them like to throw around the word lawyer a lot, and so I didn't want to get involved in that either. So, but I think those who know, and those that don't, hopefully. The other thing is I'm not promoting them at all by doing that. So those that are like, oh, I wonder who those people are, if you want to find them, good luck.
It's not hard. Just rhyme stuff with Birya and things like that.
Yeah, just go go to YouTube and type Disney Star Wars, and you'll find them all right away.
They'll pop up right at the top, screaming about something. Woke this or woke that. Cancel this, or Star Wars is dead. All that type of stuff. I guess kind of sticking on the fandom and how some of it has gone sideways. Do you believe at this point in time that this fandom is fundamentally broken, at least in regards to kind of the negativity and those types of opinions getting most of the attention, especially in these down periods when there's no active Star Wars TV or movies to discuss?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is misinformation, and it doesn't matter if it's about a movie series, or it's about a sports team, or if it's about, I don't know, pharmaceuticals or policy or something. There's a lot of misinformation in social media. And so that's what I'm more concerned about, right? Like, so I will never forget before. So when I went to Star Wars Celebration, I went with my dad, and I took my son. And so my dad was trying to get caught up on what the latest stuff is. I mean, he's an on-screen Star Wars fan. He'll watch Disney Plus, most of it. He doesn't know anything about Clone Wars, doesn't know anything about it, but he knows the basics. But I remember he called me and we were talking. He's like, "So what is this about Lucasfilm being sold back to George Lucas?" I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, I saw some guy named Mike Zero."
Oh
And I was
yeah,
like, "Okay,
Zero. Yeah,
let
gotcha,
me
Dad.
explain this to you right now." But so
Grifter.
yeah, so I think, and I would love to sort of like have the ability to come into something completely fresh and understand how much of that is an influence. I think that there's, um, I think less an influence on fandom and more an influence on decisions made by people who would get involved or by the companies themselves. So, do I think the fandom is dead? No, but I think Disney and Lucasfilm have to make some really successful shows. They need another Mandalorian. They need this Starfighter movie to re-kick things forward. They need to get the fans back into it because I look at my 13-year-old son, right, and he likes Clone Wars, but he's not like he's not an active Star Wars fan. And so they need to be able to reach those fans because again, the adults who are online complaining about it and just having all the issues with it, they have a big voice. I mean, the problem is when some of them have 3 million followers, that definitely has an impact. But I would bet, and I would love to be able to somehow find this out, the 3 million people who follow a particular guy, I'll bet you they're still watching everything and they're still going to the movies and they're still buying this stuff because they are still fans. And even if they truly don't like the sequel era, right, or the Disney era, even if they truly don't like it, they're waiting and wanting for that to come back. They want it to be fixed. I mean, and I think that that's sort of the heart of the story in my book is they love it so much that not the people who are making money on it, the people who get pulled into those sort of discussions, they love it so much that they just want it to be what they want it to be. And I'm not going to say they want it to be good because I think it's good. You think, parts of it are good, or you like, this or that. Everybody's got their opinion and the right to their opinion. But I think that we all just want it to be what we want it to be. I mean, that's why when I walked out of The Last Jedi, I was like, I didn't love it. And then now it's become my favorite story. And the reason is it's a microcosm of fandom. I thought I knew exactly what was going to happen in that movie. I knew how it was going to go. She was going to be trained by Luke. It was going to be like this whole sort of Empire 2.0, and it wasn't at all. And I was initially disappointed, and then I thought about it. I was like, wow, that's actually really cool. Like if I knew what was going to happen in every show, I wouldn't need to watch it. So, to come back and actually try to answer your question, I think the fandom needs it to be successful again. And I think they need to do it through video games because that's where that next audience is. And I think we need a really good couple of Star Wars movies that people just don't even listen to anything online and just love it enough to go see it 2 or 3 times, like you did with Predator. I mean, that's
exactly right. Because I mean, this guy, depending on box office these days, but I don't see how they don't give him a part 2, and so he can keep kind of developing this, and the fans will keep coming. So, kind of playing off what you were saying there. Why do you think these fans hate Disney's take on Star Wars so much? Is it being influenced through the big channels, or do you think they have legitimate beefs with some of the narratives and casting choices and cancellations or announcements that never come to fruition?
Yeah, I think so. If we take out the politics of it, which is honestly, I think, where most of the people making money on it, the people creating that content are coming from, right?
Yep.
And if you look at politics, you see how easy it is for people to hear a mouthpiece say something and then it gets repeated and repeated and repeated. And that's a real problem. But I think the reason people do have issues with it is, I mean, look, if you look at it from a pure story standpoint, and if you Uh, you look at things like The Acolyte, for example, right? Which I thought was a great
It's a good show.
story. It had a lot of opportunity. I think it just felt choppy. It felt like some of it was kind of rewritten and redone. But again, and I said this on a show the other day, and I mean it 100%. Leslie Headland knows more about Star Wars lore than anybody who's made anything since Dave Filoni. I think she gets it, and it
Damn.
was all in there. It was all in there. Um, but I think that there is sort of an expectation, and I think it's the same thing that happened to me when I walked out of Phantom Menace. I expected to become a kid again. I expected to be that 7, 8, 10-year-old person and walk out and be like, wow, that was awesome. And I didn't at first. And when you watch something and all you want is to be able to recapture something, it's very hard to do that. Now, I think things like I think a big problem from the sequel trilogy is, quite honestly, there was no plan, and I will continue to say that. And as much as I love Force Awakens and Last Jedi, I feel like The Rise of Skywalker was just a mess. And I think
Terrible.
part of it was because they were like, oh well, we got to appease these fans and we didn't appease there. And I know I didn't like that perspective at first, but then I watched The Rise of Skywalker again somewhat recently. And I was like, yeah, this is full of a lot of sort of, I hate to say fan service, but fan
It
service.
is.
And
Yeah.
uh so, and it wasn't very well thought out. And the way I say it, and this is my hot take, and the clip for your show is that I think J.J. Abrams is a Star Wars movie fan. I think Ryan Adams is a Star Wars fan. Meaning, I think J.J. is like, oh, let's put Palpatine in here and let's bring Lando back and let's scare people about killing Chewie and let's create giant weapons that can blow up a planet because that's what we do. And Ryan was like, what would happen to a Jedi after everything Luke went through? And so it's just a very different perspective. Um, and geez, I feel like I totally went off the rails on your
No.
question, but I think it's ultimately, I think it comes down to it's not the Star Wars people expected and what they grew up with. And think about it. If you're comparing it also to, if people are like, we had all the EU stuff, they could have just redone Heir to the Empire.
I've heard
Well,
that
they could have.
argument a few times.
Yeah, and the reality is you were also, you were 12 when you saw the movie and now you were 19 when that came out or whatever the age was. So you weren't you now. And you're not, I hate to say it, I'm never going to have that moment again that I had when I saw Star Wars the first time. And when I go see Mando and Grogu next year, I'm going to be excited, but I know I'm going to walk out and be like, that was fun, but it's not, it doesn't make me 7 years old again. So,
Yeah, true. All right. So, in your book, Who Owns the Myth, you do talk about some of the most prolific myths of humankind. I mean, some are thousands of years old.
yeah.
So, when you look at Star Wars, let's kind of fast forward it 200 years into the future. How do you think it's
Yeah.
going to be discussed? Is it going to be kind of more academic, like the Iliad and the Odyssey? I mean, sometimes you could have a whole college course on those. Do you think it's going to kind of go that path, or is it going to stick more in the pop culture realm?
Yeah, I think there's two roads for it to take. I think my initial thought is that yeah, it's going to be studied because again, it follows if you're teaching myth, you can put Luke Skywalker on top of Homer, on top of Theseus, on top of David. You can put it's the same kind of story, and it's a great thing to study. I mean, Dan Zare from Coffee with Kenobi, he's a teacher and he teaches mythology and he brings Star Wars into it all the time. So I think that's one route. If it stops growing, I think it will be studied. I think if 200 years is such a big number, and it's a number that I think about a lot when it comes to this sort of thing. Um, I, I mean, it's lasted 50 years and it's still fresh and it's still vibrant and it still matters. I think as long as they create content or stories that continue to talk to the times, um, then it will still be fresh and created. And I think that a lot of that depends on where the creators go and the kinds of stories and how they deliver those stories. I think, I have a Meta Quest, the Oculus, and I've played some of those virtual reality stories, and they're cool. It's not the way I love to take things in, but it's going to become more and more those sorts of things. And technology in 200 years, we have no idea how it's going to come and what's going to happen. But I think the key is because if you think about it, the original trilogy was speaking very clearly to, whether people today want to admit it or not, it was speaking very clearly to the times, right? It was very focused on, I mean, George has said it 1,000 times, that the Ewoks and the rebels were the Viet Cong and they were fighting blah blah blah.
Thank
And then
you.
you look at the prequels, and they were based on the Bush administration and the weird things going on there and the way people felt about things. And you look at the sequels, and I think they lost a little bit of the political, or at least the essence of what the times are. But what they didn't miss at all, and I think they did a great job with, was bringing in characters that people expected to see in a movie like this at this time. If you go in and, they had a young woman Jedi, they had a black man, because he's not African American, he's African British, I guess, right? And you had Poe, and you had all these different characters that reflected what we see in our world now. And so from that perspective, it worked well. I do think they need to, they got to be careful about doing politics, because we're in a world now where politics is so divisive. Whichever side you take, you're going to piss off the other side. But you look at Andor, which was clearly telling a story that is as old as time and as fresh as the morning news. So I think more stories like Andor will keep it in that sort of growth mode.
I guess kind of sticking with that, do you believe deep down that Star Wars content will still be actively created 200 years from now? And could you take a stab at what that may look like?
I think I would love to say that it will be. But I think the reality is I don't know what the life cycle is. Again, I go back to the Wizard of Oz, right? It was so big it lasted its own 50 years and then kind of disappeared. I don't really think it will still, I mean, if I'm being really honest, I don't think it will still be actively being created. But I think the world that has been built, and we're seeing it with shows like Skeleton Crew, where there is enough of a world. So in 200 years, if Star Wars content stops tomorrow, and we know it's not, but if it did, and in 200 years somebody was like, you know what, I want to write a story in that Star Wars universe, it could be fresh and new and reflect what's happening then. So I think it'll have its own dark times and things, but I honestly think more than anything else, it will probably be studied and still be exciting enough for people to be able to build it. I mean, we still see great stories that take place during the Roman Empire and things like that. So I think it's and I firmly believe it will be taught. It will be taught as, when people talk about what a myth looks like and how it works, it will be in there.
Star Wars 101 and 102.
Hey, attention colleges. I'm willing to teach it.
Hey, that's my profession by trade, so I'm ready to go.
Oh, there you go. You're ready.
I was told you sound a little bit like C-3PO. Hopefully I got that corrected. Unfortunately, it was probably for a good bulk of the interview, but I think that's fixed now. I know you got to get out of here pretty soon, so I do have one last question. All right.
Sure.
If you're just tuning in now, we're talking with Pete Fletzer, host of Around the Galaxy over on the SSW network. He also just authored Who Owns the Myth? Star Wars Fandom and the Soul of the Saga, out now. You can grab it on whoownsthemyth.com or over on Amazon. So Pete, you wrote this. You had this idea, and you asked the question of every reader of the book, and I'm still trying to figure it out myself, because it's hard for me to just not, George owns it. It came from him first, and he's kind of the creator. We call him the maker in some circles.
Yep.
But deep down, who do you believe owns it? Do you think since it's been around so long, it has kind of transcended George, and now it's just owned by the world? I mean, what's your take to your own question?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be owned by whoever has the copyright, right? And that's proven by the fact that I went through 2 different book covers before I printed it, right? I had somebody look at it and they said, Disney's not going to like that. I said, okay, so I'll take that down. So yeah, it will always be owned by whoever has the copyright. But I think ultimately, if the story speaks to you and if the story sticks with you after you leave and you still continue to talk about it, me and my dad, who used to talk about movies all the time, we knew a movie was good if we were talking about it the next day, and then the next day, and then texting each other about it or calling each other about it a few days later. So the owner is, I think at this point, because it's gone through Lucas, it's gone through probably 100 different book authors who have created canon in the in that universe. So it's not owned by one person anymore. I think, George has even said, there's my universe and then there's the other stuff that's been done. And that's fair. I mean, to George, it's his and it will always be his, as it should be his. But I really think that we've reached the point at almost 50 years of Star Wars that the story, the myth, the heart and soul of Star Wars belongs to anybody who's a fan, who belongs to anybody who has watched it and couldn't stop thinking about it, or anybody who, has built friendships based on it. You own that story. You're not writing it, but you own that story. And that's why you may or may not love everything that comes out. And I think as soon as you get comfortable with the fact that just because it says Star Wars doesn't mean you're going to love it, but it's going to be in a place that you want to go, then it's still Star Wars and it still works. And you absolutely have, as somebody who takes it with them, that's who owns it. We own that story as a people versus, a copyright.
I dig it. I used to always fight people who said the EU was real stories. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Not unless George blessed it when he owned it. No, it was not real content. But
correct.
That's kind of the point of Pete's book. So make sure to go check it out. I'm not kidding around. I really enjoyed reading Who Owns the Myth. Those of you that have been following me for a while, I'm not a big book reader, so that says volumes about what Pete has released this week. So go check it out. Like I said, whoownsthemyth.com, or you could find it over on Amazon, both Kindle and paperback. It's a very easy read. If you're an older fan, you're going to love it. If you're a newer fan, I think you're going to kind of learn some of the experiences some of us older fans went through as special editions were coming out, then the prequels, then the sequels. It reads like a memoir, but it's going to produce a lot of nostalgia within yourself, especially us older fans. It was great to kind of relive my own journey through Star Wars, reading Pete's journey. So highly recommend from the Star Wars Time Show. Give it a try. Give Pete a few sales here. Okay. All right, Pete, thank you for your time. I know you got to get out of here, so we're going to hit the post right at 7:00. I appreciate your time, and really, the book was awesome, man. So good luck with the rest of the promotion, and hopefully some copies start flying off those shelves.
Awesome. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. This has been a blast.
All right, man. Well, I'll make sure to check out some SSW Network shorts when you're poking the bear again. I always like those.
Oh, I'll be poking it for sure, yeah.
All right, Pete, have yourself a good night, and thanks again, man. May the Force be with you.
You too. Thanks.
All right. See ya. All right. Pete, you may have to hang up. I closed it. There we go. I closed the browser and he was still there. All right. Let me switch some things up here. Oh boy. We're on the solo screen, so I got to get all these things turned off real quick. Yeah, that was pretty fun, huh? Yeah, Pete's a good guy. I've known about him for a little bit. Sorry, I wish Kramer, you should have told me he was sounding like C-3PO early on. You were one of the only people in the stream. I was hearing him perfectly, and apparently some of these updates that have gone through over the past few weeks have foiled our tech setup that used to work flawlessly. So unfortunately, for the first 50 minutes, poor Pete literally sounds like C-3PO. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. Like, it's listenable, but it is 1000% a C-3PO voice. So I feel bad that I did that to Pete. Hopefully he can forgive us. But hey, if you know the SWTS, you know our tech sucks at times. So it's just par for the course, my friends. All right. Well, hey, you know what? It's not time to say goodbye yet. This is the Star Wars Time Show. We did skip Ask Us Anything this week for Pete's interview, but I have collected your questions and will get them addressed over the next coming weeks. I think next week I'm going to be doing another live because young Nick is out again. So I'll probably be doing another Wednesday live talking about whatever. If you've got things you want me to riff on, you know what to do. Jump in our Discord. Open link in this video's description to sign up. But we are going to do a little bit of the fan segment, okay? I do have my top 5, and I do have some question of the week responses, so we'll go ahead and address those right now. Although, real quick, Kramer's asked me, have I watched Black Sails? I did. I watched the first few seasons and then fell off after that. But it's a pretty good. It was a pretty decent series, and I think they use actual pirates from history and whatnot. So it's probably not a waste of your time if that's something you want to get into. All right, I need to bring up some Slack. All right. So, question of the week. We do it every week. To get involved, just make sure you're following us on our socials, Instagram, YouTube, Discord. You know what to do. You know what to do. But we typically we ask a question that is themed to the week's main topic. So this week we were interviewing Pete about his book, Who Owns the Myth? So we asked fans, who does own the myth, in your opinion? And it appears not many fans had too many thoughts on this. So this is going to be a quick question of the week segment. I'm not complaining. It's always nice to get done a little early. But we got our boy Mike Kramer here saying all of the above, in my opinion. So he's saying George owns it, Disney owns it, and the fans own it. And then our other loyal disciple here, Mando Pirate, saying Lucas and Disney, but Disney more. Okay? If you want to know my personal take, I don't know. I know he doesn't physically own it anymore. It's not his right. He can't claim royalties from it. But I'm always going to have to kind of tilt a little towards Lucas, because without him being the genesis of all this stuff, nothing would have come after for other people to own or weave new myths with. All right, so damn it, I'm bummed out that he sounded like C-3PO for such a long time. Okay, so that's question of the week. Now we're going to close things out with everyone's favorite segment. It's the top 5 Star Wars fan artist features. We do it every week. The best way to get involved, it's over on Instagram, so starwarstime.show for those keeping score. And you can use hashtag Star Wars Time Show. But more importantly, if you want to be included for the top 5, you need to do ad tag at starwarstime.show. All right, so let's see what the fans put up this week. All right, Kramer, we'll see you later, bro. So, these are my picks. Nick is not allowed to pick when he is not on the show. So let's get right to my first pick. And it is a fantastic one. I think we've talked about some of these before, from JZHZ6669. He's been doing these, Star Wars Coke can promos with his Hot Toys figures. In this one, we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Kenobi series doing the rock lift maneuver that he did on Vader to kind of beat him up, rough him up a little bit. But, you got the Coke branding in there. You got Obi-Wan's Coke can floating up in the air. I don't know. I love these shots. I don't know why it doesn't really make sense to mesh Coca-Cola with a Star Wars figure, considering there is no Coca-Cola in the Star Wars universe. But these images work, and they always look great. So if you're not already following them, make sure to check out JZHZ6669 on Instagram. All right, my next choice for this week's top 5. There he is, everyone's favorite non-Sith, non-Jedi, who should have been the initial founder of the Knights of Ren. We've got Kamir. And this is a Black Series Kamir. He's a great-looking figure. I've got him right to my left. But this one is from Betty Ione _Star Wars over on Instagram. I mean, listen, it's just a great figure. I love this design. I love Kamir from top to bottom. I mean, he is the Acolyte. He was the Acolyte. And as I said, he should have been the proto Knight of Ren. But this shot, it's super simple. It's a portrait. He's just kind of standing there. He's got his Kylo Grin helmet on. He's got his saber ignited, his Cortosis gauntlet, and he's just kind of pointing the sword down like he's going to stab it into the ground. And I don't know, it's just a fantastic shot. I mean, this Mr. Happy, we know what he can do with that blade, and he is a deadly mofo. So a big fan of this Kamir shot from Betty Ione _SW on Instagram. My third choice this week, hey, there's a theme here. See, I told you I love this character. It's another shot of the Stranger, a.k.a. Kamir, this time from Mr. Stormtrooper Davis, all one handle over on Instagram. this shot it's kind of a recreation of the Acolyte, I think, with episode 5, where he confronts the Jedi on Kofor's forest. It's got great lighting, great atmosphere. There's dead Jedi strewn throughout the ground. It's just an excellent setup and execution of the setup from Mr. Stormtrooper Davis. This is what I would classify, at least for me, if you're listening, Mr. Stormtrooper Davis, a wall hanger. I would love to have this hanging in SWTS HQ. It's just a fantastic looking shot from Mr. Stormtrooper Davis over on Instagram. All right, next shot. We've got a beauty here, a collection of prequel era Jedi. Well, many era Jedi, because Yoda's in there. But this one comes to us from Black Series Bonanza, all one word. And it's again, you could think Black Series was in the Jedi Temple, capturing the Jedi Masters, the Jedi Council, if you will, walking through the hallways en route to a meeting or after a meeting has been dismissed. You got the little green guy in the front leading with Mace Windu, flanking him to his right. Behind them, where the focus isn't as strong, you've got Plo, you've got Kiadi, Kit Fisto, Shaq T, and of course, Mr. Hello there himself, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So just kind of a great group shot of these iconic Jedi from Black Series Bonanza, all one word. And finally, a super crispy shot coming from Coleccionista de Plastico over on Instagram. And it's just a super, super, super smooth looking crispy shot of General Grievous. Yeah, Mr. Smokes 10 packs a day himself. I mean, listen, it's a basic setup. You got it's a Grievous portrait, so it's mostly focusing on his face, but you can see some of his mechanical arms and his sabers in there. In fact, you get all 4 sabers lit up. And it's just, I know I've said it like 10 times now, but it really is. It's just a very crispy looking shot. If you've ever been in the toy photography industry or taken pictures of toys or just appreciate pictures of Star Wars toys, when you say a shot is crispy, it's one of the best compliments you can give it. It just looks pristine. So again, this beauty is from Coleccionista _de _Plastico over on the gram. All right, so that's that. Again, sorry for the C-3PO spin on poor Pete Fletzer's mic. Hopefully he doesn't hate us, and it's still somewhat watchable by people out there. Like I said, just pretend he's C-3PO, and then for the last maybe 5 minutes, 8 minutes of his interview, it goes back to normal. So shame on me, shame on the equipment, shame, shame, shame. It's the Star Wars Time Show. That's how we roll. All right, people, don't forget, if you want an easy-to-read book that kind of recounts what it was like to be a Star Wars fan going through the original trilogy, the prequels and the sequels, and then just discussing who owns the Star Wars myth and why do fans develop tribes around certain Star Wars properties, and why have things gotten so kind of out of control with the fandom. Make sure to check out Pete's book, Who Owns the Myth? Star Wars Fandom and the Soul of the Saga. Like I said, whoownsthemyth.com, or you should be able to find it over on Amazon. Thanks to my 2 dudes that held it down with me in the live stream chat. If you do want to join the live streams every other Wednesday, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show, 6 p. Eastern, as close as we can get. Although next week, I think I will be doing a live again. So look for one on the 19th. Who knows what I'm going to talk about, but you know me. I've got plenty of hot air to spew, so I'll be spewing something next Wednesday. All right, my friends, I appreciate you all. Make sure to share this out. Let people know about Pete's book. Let people know that Pete does a fantastic C-3PO impression. And as always, there's always time for Star Wars Time. Don't forget it. And if you listen to the Star Wars Time Show, the Force will be with you always.